Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Rocket Chiro Podcast, a business and marketing podcast for chiropractors. My name's Jerry. I'm your host. I'm a former chiropractor. I help chiropractors with websites and local SEO. I help new chiropractors get started. I help stuck chiropractors get unstuck, and I host this little podcast. Today we are going to talk about 3 things that you will be thankful if you make them a priority, but it probably won't happen right away. This is one of those, I'm glad I did it a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, because it's really, really important, but it's not necessarily urgent, which means it's easy for chiropractors to put this off and just wake up 5 years or 10 years into practice and realize that, man, I should have done that differently. So this is going to serve as a reminder. This is all stuff we've talked about before, but it's just going to serve as a reminder, especially now as we're heading into the new year. Come up with a plan, make these things a priority, and it may not massively change your life in the next 6 months, but it will massively change your life and your practice in the next 6 years. And that's the hard part about what we're going to talk about. Now, before I get into that, I do want to say if you want help with your website or local SEO, you can reach out to me through Rocket Chiro. If you want me to look at your website and SEO, give you some recommendations, kind of do a little bit of a deep dive into how you compare to other chiropractors in your area, you can request a website and SEO assessment. I'll look at your stuff. I'll send you a custom video. It's free of charge, no obligation. We don't have to work together, but if we can work together, we'll talk about that as well. If you are wanting to go beyond the podcast, you're getting started with your practice, or you've been out for a little while and you're feeling stuck and you want some additional help, some additional content, check out my Next Step program. It's a month-to-month program. It is affordable. It's for chiropractors to help them get a good foundation for having a successful practice, or identifying some of those issues that you may be having, some of those bad habits that you may be having, to help you get unstuck. That's what Next Step is for. It's just a great way to go beyond the podcast. All that can be found at rocketchiro.com. So make sure you go and check that out. All right. So we live in a world where, and this has been the case for a long time, so this is not a new thing, is new patients. Like chiropractic marketing groups, chiropractic coaches, chiropractic gurus. Everybody wants to talk about new patients. I'm sure that you guys get the DMs, like you get the things in the message saying, oh, I can help you get 40 new patients. And people used to put online like 40 extra new patients per month without spending a dime, like nonsense like that. Because the idea of getting new patients is great, because if you're a struggling chiropractor or you're a chiropractor that wants to grow, new patients fixes that. And the crazy thing about new patients is, even if you have a bunch of crappy systems and all this other stuff we're going to talk about is absolutely terrible and atrocious, if you throw enough new patients on a bad practice, it will band-aid that thing forever. So if you happen to have a chiropractor, or you know a chiropractor, or there's somebody in your town who is really, really good at acquiring new patients, they could be a dumpster fire in every other aspect of their practice and still have a successful practice, because enough new patients will keep a crappy practice afloat and a crappy chiropractor in business. So that's sort of the appeal of it. There's a bit of a adrenaline rush that comes from new patients. It's an influx of income. It's an influx of patient visits. All of those numbers that we talked about on the podcast before, where we talked about those vanity numbers, all those vanity numbers are padded with the influx of new patients. And so now here's the problem with it. I will say this. If your practice is run that way, there's a tremendous amount of stress and pressure to keep that up. And if you ever have a month where you don't have a massive influx of new patients, all the other stuff in your practice is so bad that you feel it right away. So there is a tremendous amount of stress. There's a tremendous amount of pressure that goes into having a practice like that. And I think that long term, you're better off. Like, I would never turn down new patients, but you're better off creating a stable practice where you're raising the floor of your practice, you're raising the foundation of your practice, where the ups and downs that you have are not so high risk, high reward. That is a very stressful way to run a chiropractic practice. Now, in the beginning, when you're first getting started, you need new patients. Like this stuff that I'm going to talk to you about here, it's going to impact your practice over the course of years and over the course of the lifetime of your practice. If you focus on these things exclusively in the beginning, you're probably going to starve to death. And that's because these things don't change your practice immediately. They change your practice long term. So it's important to keep that in mind. If I have a chiropractor that reaches out to me and they're just getting started, they're asking for help, and even something like SEO, which is not something that I've even talked about here, but search engine optimization or AI optimization and all of that stuff, that's kind of a long-term play. It's difficult to go from, man, I really need a lot of new patients to I'm getting a ton of people from search, because that process is actually just building a relationship with Google, and that takes time. There's not usually something that we can do where it's like flip a switch and automatically you show up at the top of Google. Now, there are people that sell you that service, and I actually know what they're doing. Generally, stuff like that is sketchy. And I don't mean sketchy like it's illegal. I just mean sketchy as in Google recognizes patterns. And when you do something that drastically breaks the pattern that helps you or kind of artificially helps you, I think that puts you in a position to have a bad relationship with Google. They know you're doing something sketchy, which isn't in my notes. It's not something I was going to talk about. All right, so what are the 3 things we're going to talk about? I'm just going to touch on the reason why these are important, but not go into the systems as to how you improve these things, because I've talked about that on the podcast. There's information in the next step. There's plenty of information about these. This is really just a reminder that these things are important. Heading into the new year, if they aren't a priority, make them a priority, because you're going to be glad that you did long term. Those 3 things are reviews, relationships, and retention. Now, when I started this, I did not plan on having all R's, but the part of me that grew up in a Baptist church really appreciates that all 3 points have the first starting letter. And if you've never been in a Baptist church, you don't know why that's fun, because, that's what pastors do. So number 1, reviews. Nothing makes my life easier from a local SEO standpoint than when I pick up a client that has a ton of reviews. And it generally just makes everything else I do easier. It impacts conversion. It impacts your local SEO rank. It impacts the secondary SEO searches, because the words in those reviews will impact what searches you show up for, even more so than a lot of other things. It's probably going to impact AI. And I say probably because I'm very hesitant to give some sort of bold declaration statement about AI. We're still sort of learning how that works, and we're learning what information it's pulling. But I do know that AI does value what people are saying. You'll hear, if you ask AI questions, I say here, when you ask AI a question, a lot of times it will dig into Reddit and things of that nature to see what people are saying about products and services. And so this would fall into that category. AI will also look into reviews and things of that nature. So I think that the reviews not only impact your traditional Google, which is still a thing. Like I know AI is like the sexy thing to talk about, but the vast majority of people still go to Google, and they're probably going to for a while. I understand that AI is impacting Google. I understand that it's something that people are using as a standalone. I get all of that. But I think there's a lot of overlap with what Google looks for and what AI looks for, with some interesting caveats, which we're not going to get into on the podcast. But I do think reviews matter for both platforms. And so making a priority to get reviews, adding reviews on a monthly basis, and adding as many of them as possible. I had a client one time that was getting a lot of reviews, and they asked me, like, at what point is it too much? Like, I have like 2 or 3 times everybody else in the area. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I would dunk on everybody in my area if I was a local chiropractor trying to get reviews, and I had 2, 3, 4x everybody else. Like, I'm going to stomp on their throat, and I'm going to just keep piling on. Like, I would have there's no part of me that would think that there's ever a point where having 10x the amount of reviews as everyone else is a bad thing or something I should stop focusing on. Reviews matter. Next is going to be relationships. This is tough for introverts. Like, I'm an introvert. Like, it takes me a long time to build relationships. I prefer being on my computer versus being in front of people or like talking to human beings. I get it. I understand. It's really hard as a chiropractor, as an introvert. This is that you're meeting new people all the time. In a perfect world, you're building relationships with your patients. You're building relationships with the other business owners in the area, other key people within your profession, other key people within your community. It's just something that chiropractic really is a relationship business. We're in the people business. And if you don't understand that, and there are ways to do it as an introvert that are a little bit easier, and ways you can make it more manageable where an extrovert doesn't have problems with that. They like want to be friends with everybody. Regardless, the point is that those relationships are really, really important. And they're important because when you meet new people, those are potential new patients. When you meet new people, they're potential referral sources, which I think a lot of people are actually more likely a referral source than a patient. In situations like BNI and things like that, it sort of just depends. I think there's potential open doors and opportunities that come through relationships. The whole idea of it's not what you know, it's who you know. Like that's a thing. Like that's a real thing. And if we could like wave a magic wand and you could become known by just everybody in the area knows who you are. Like even if it was just all the business owners, all the professionals, whatever, all the sports people, whatever, they knew who you were and they had just a baseline positive thing to say about you. That solves a lot of your problems. Those relationships are super, super valuable. The issue is whether you're an extrovert or introvert, it takes time. And extroverts and introverts make different mistakes when it comes to building relationships. But those relationships are super, super valuable. And I think that they're underestimated. And chiropractors that have really, really good relationships within the community, like they benefit from that stability. They benefit from that tremendously. And there's even a potential authority and like celebrity association with if you have, like, oh, the people from the baseball team come in here, or you end up having a relationship with the mayor, you have a relationship with somebody in the area who's famous, or they're an athlete, they're an actor, even if they're just TikTok famous or whatever, there is a potential authority, celebrity kind of transfer that happens because of those relationships. So the point is to build relationships, make relationships, cultivate those relationships. And as a general rule, this is sort of the old BNI person in me talking. It's like it's important to go into those with the giving mentality, not a taking mentality. Like that's a taking mentality is not a great way to build relationships from a chiropractic standpoint. Probably in general. Last one we're going to talk about is retention. The reason retention is not super sexy is because usually when there's talking about retention, there is short-term retention. And I think that's probably more of a shiny thing than long-term retention. Short-term retention is just helping someone go through their initial care. Some chiropractors make the mistake of kind of blurring the lines between short-term and long-term care. And some chiropractors make the mistake of not ever talking about long-term care, ongoing care, or not even introducing care plans as an idea to their patient. They just sort of fly by the seat of their pants and nobody knows what's going on. Like that's a terrible way to go about practice. What you want to have in a really good, stable practice is you want to have a plan in place for helping a person go through their initial care, which is your short-term retention. Making sure that you're on the same page, making sure that that person, if they miss an appointment, they're called right away or they're texted right away, that they get scheduled and get back in. I'm not talking about guilt tripping people. I'm not talking about making people feel bad. I'm not talking about harassing people. I'm just talking about having a plan. Because if you don't have a plan for short-term and long-term retention, what you do is the two kind of extremes that you run into is short-term retention without a plan. You run or actually both of them. Strike that. Let me start over again. When you do retention without a plan, you run the risk of either missing people, like you just didn't call them, you forgot to call them, you didn't follow up with them, like they're there, you just didn't reach out. Or the other extreme is you harass people, where I don't realize I called them 10 times already. And because I don't realize I called them 10 times already, I turn someone who loves me and is happy with our care to someone who's kind of annoyed with me because I've called them 10 times. So those are the extremes. That's why it's really, really good to have a plan. Short-term impacts results. So if you don't have a plan and you're not helping someone go through their initial care, that impacts the kind of results you can have. And I understand that some people can get really great results, really short time frame, but we're talking about what we normally do with a normal person. There's generally good to have a method to the madness. So to get the best results, short-term retention is important. To cultivate a relationship, short-term retention is important. Someone who comes in one time and sees you is probably not going to have a connection to you, like you've become their chiropractor. Like when they need a chiropractor again, they're going to come see you. That's less likely to happen with one visit. It's more likely to happen if someone's gone through a course of care and you kind of work them through their issue and kind of help them with their issue. I understand there's limited amount of control that you have over that, but short-term does help the results and it does help your relationship. Last thing is the long-term retention is not something that makes a huge difference in your numbers. It's just one of those underlying things that helps the foundation of your practice. And I consider long-term retention as a reminder more than anything else. I would never encourage my staff to reach out to people and try to guilt them into coming back in. When we reach out to people and it's been 3 months, it's been 6 months, it's been a year, we haven't heard from them. We're really only just trying to reach out to people who they need to come in. There's something going on that we could really help them with, but they've been busy. They haven't thought about it. They've just put it off. People get sidetracked. And so for me, long-term retention, the goal of long-term retention is to connect with people that should be coming in. They just aren't. And it just functions as a reminder. But when those people come back in, even if they start a course of care again, you're generally not going to see them quite as much as what you did initially. And it's generally not going to have the impact on your practice with those vanity numbers like a new patient is. So that's sort of why making the effort to reach out to someone, and it's like, oh, they come in once or twice, you don't see them again for a year. Well, I still think you should do it. You should do it because of the long-term stability of your practice. You should do it because of the long-term relationship. You should do it because you're their chiropractor, and that's just a good, responsible thing to do, is to help someone when kind of give them advice on what's best or recommend what's best. Reach out to them, kind of help someone when they're, people just put it off and they don't think it's important. A little reminder can be a really good thing. And it's one of those things that 5 years later, 10 years later, you look at it and you're like, man, those trickle of people that we see once or twice or 3 times a year, it starts to add up. It doesn't initially, and that's why it's easy to put off. And it's like, oh, I'm going to run Instagram ads, or I'm going to run Google ads, or I'm going to go to a health fair. There's nothing wrong with any of that stuff. I'm just saying that if that's what you're doing constantly and you're not thinking about reviews, you're not thinking about building relationships, you're not thinking about retention, you're just going to find yourself 5 years, 10 years down the road trying to find the next big influx new patient thing, because you have to have that big influx new patient thing to keep your head above water, because you never did the other things that would stabilize your practice long term. So just don't do that. This is sort of one of those, like the old Chinese proverb, right? Where it's like the best day to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the next best day to plant a tree is today. The best time to start on this stuff was when you started. And if you've been out in practice for 5 or 6 years and you haven't made this stuff a priority, well, you can't do anything about that. So plant a tree today. Like, start doing stuff about this today. And just make sure that, hey, I'm going to commit to this over the course of next year. Like, we're heading into a new year here in about a month and a half. And it's like, commit to doing better about this stuff next year. Do you have to be perfect? Of course not. Like, that's silly. That's ridiculous. But can you be better? I think most of us would say yes. So do that, and you'll be glad that you did. It'll just be a few years from now. All right, guys, that's it. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing the podcast. If you know a chiropractor who would benefit from the podcast, but they don't listen, which is a lot, because I always tell you guys it's a small podcast. So if you know a chiropractor you'd be willing to share it with, or you'd be willing to share it on your social, that'd be super cool. I'd really appreciate it. If you want to leave a review for the podcast, you can do that in Apple Podcasts. If you want to leave a review for Rocket Chiro, you can do that on Google. We have a Google business profile, which I put very little attention into because of how my business works. But if you want to leave a review, which I do appreciate, you can go to Rocket Chiro, look in the footer. There's a link to our Google business profile if you want to leave a review. All right, guys, that's it. I'm done. I'm out of here. I'll talk to you later. See ya.